I'm really excited to share this discussion because I know that a lot of the people who watch my content are on their own spiritual journeys, and they're very excited by all of the different stories that people have been sharing about their own spiritual awakenings. But with the spiritual awakening comes the question, is this spiritual or is this madness? And I think CJ articulates his experiences brilliantly, and he's been all the way into this is a spiritual experience, and he's been almost all the way into no, actually this is a mental illness, and then he's found his way back to balance. If you get anything out of the video, please share it with somebody else you know who may benefit from these insights.
Hey everyone, my name is CJ and I'm here today to talk to you about my own experience of what I guess the world calls mental illness, and also my own experience of the spiritual awakening that's occurred through that process for me. And yeah, so just to give you a bit of background, I'm nearly 40, and I reckon this started for me, like, even though it was the kind of being aware of other realities and tapping into that and having strong experiences of that, definitely started and was very strong in childhood, like I think most humans, even if they can't remember it. It kind of really became a thing for me when I was 14, 15 years old and started smoking marijuana, and that really began to open me up. So yeah, that was kind of the beginning, and then as time went on, by the time I was about 18, 19, I'd moved away from my family and was living on my own, doing university and things like that, and I wasn't taking a lot of heavy psychoactive substances or anything, but what I found, that's when I started to meet people who were into spiritual things and started to really change the way I looked at the world and open up to an alternative view on reality that actually sat better with the experiences I was having and enabled me to change. And when I turned 14 as well, 14 to 15, I got really, really sick with fibromyalgia, they call it, and chronic fatigue. And that kind of paralleled the process of getting really depressed and really anxious and things like that. So I had a lot of mental health things going on that were mixed with physical health things. And yeah, so by the time I was 18, I got on my first dose of antidepressants, and as I'm sure many people can relate to, I was completely horrified and kind of made worse by that treatment, like horrified by what it did to me. And I went from being kind of, I had mental problems, but it was contained within its own kind of space. And after taking those drugs, I stopped being able to sleep, I stopped dreaming, I started to get manic and go up and down and stuff. So after a couple of years, this was around 19, 20, 21, I took myself off those drugs and kind of vowed in a way to never again trust Western medicine to treat my mental and emotional symptoms.
It's a big call.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing this without the mainstream system.
Yeah.
At that age.
Yeah. But because for me, like a lot of things for me, like some people look at me from the outside and go, oh wow, you've got a lot of discipline, and I wish I could not do the things that you don't do, not be addicted to coffee, not drink too much, not eat bad food. But for me, it's always been, that's when it started to hit me at that time. It's always been like, I have to do this or I might die. You know, I have to do this or I'm going to end up in a mental hospital for the rest of my life. Like the choices that I've had to make have been very like that, you know, like, so it's, so that happened to me. And as that was going on, I was doing more and more work to develop myself spiritually. So I was actually training directly to become a healer.
Yep.
And what ended up happening is that those, those kind of sensitivities I had to all that stuff, to the other worlds and subtle realities and everything, through all that, I was really happy about it, because I felt growing up and being sick when you're supposed to start training to, you know, get your job and go into the world, like that's the age I was at. So you're expecting all that, but I wasn't getting that. I was like, no, well, you're too sick, probably going to be too sick to work, and you can't do this, you want to do that, you can't do that. Had to stop playing music because my arms were too sore, things like this.
Yep.
But when I was doing that training to be a healer, it was different, you know. It was like, I'm really good at this. I'm picking this up 3 times as fast as everyone else. I'm just like bang, bang, bang. Yeah, so that's like, and in that early 20s period, I was becoming an artist. I was playing music again and writing. It was like I was going out into the world, but in my own way, on my own terms.
For sure.
Yeah, and so, but I think what really imprinted me in that time was like, this is a spiritual thing. I went from, you know, going, oh, this might be an illness, but I became really staunch. This is a spiritual awakening, you know, these things I experience. Yeah. It's not an illness, you know.
And I think that's what makes you, like you say, you're able to pick this stuff up faster. It's because you've seen the deepest depths of what is possible for a human being to go through. So when somebody comes to you, it's like, yeah, I'm with you. I am with you.
Yeah,
I understand.
That's it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because what the Western world calls psychosis and, you know, the mental breakdowns and stuff, often what we're actually tapping into is a very deep reservoir of human potential. Mm-hmm. You know, when for your own awareness to die in a way and get reborn, and there's this amazing flood of awareness and insight that comes, and awakeness to the life that we're actually living and who we are, not as some idea that we're going to do or going to be, but right now. And you become, it really puts you in that situation. Yeah.
You feel that responsibility that you were talking about, you alluded to, where you say, I have to make these choices, I have to eat these healthy foods, I have to do these things, because this is inside of me, whether I chose it or not.
That's it, yeah.
So it's on.
Yeah.
And you choose, I take responsibility for this, or you choose, I'm going to allow like Western medicine to take responsibility for my life. And that's not fun.
No, it's not fun at all. And so many people are on that kind of treadmill and not getting anywhere. And I think a lot of people with these kind of problems, or just physical or any problem, are waking up to the fact that this doesn't work, you know, having this kind of disembodied relationship where I'm giving my power away to this, you know, medical system. It's not really working for me, you know. Yeah, so that, what I wanted to say, I'll just finish this, I'll try not to go on for too long, but so that's like me 20 to 15 years ago, right? Where we stopped there was like, I'm becoming a healer, and this is totally spiritual. It's not an illness at all that I've got. It's totally spiritual. So I kind of carried on with that until I hit about 30, and I had this thing, I don't know the name for it. It's a different name to psychosis, but where you go into that space where you're completely different and you're not seeing things, you're seeing multi-dimensional realities and everything, but I wasn't I wasn't jarring people socially. Like I was still aware that other people weren't going to see me in that light and relating to them from that vantage. So I never got hospitalized and things like that. But then when I hit 30 and I left where I was living and moved up to this different climate, I started to actually go psychotic and like lose myself and when I was having those experiences, I felt fine. I felt great. You know, I just enjoyed them. But the people around me who were close to me, my closest friends and things like that, they were getting damaged by it. And so that's when it turned for me into being not a spiritual thing to it's only an illness, but that's when I started to go, oh, there's a component to this that is an illness that does need to be managed.
There's something that needs to be brought into balance here.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, for sure. So that's when I started the focus of, and like you said, what it's been about, balancing the body, teaching my body to get stronger, to be able to sleep properly again, eating regularly, even though that was an idea I resisted for so long. I was like, that's so boring, but doing it, like making me, it's made me feel so much stronger. So, so like, that's my kind of story of where I'm at now.
So when you hit that point where you say you had to bring it back into balance, what did that entail? Was that when you, like you're saying?
Well, firstly, to my extreme horror, I actually ended up on anti-psychotic medication. But like, even though it was hard, I actually am glad for it now. And also there was a distinction was made that the doctors even admitted they'd given me the wrong stuff earlier on.
Okay,
Because they were giving me anti-psychotic stuff, not antidepressive stuff. So I ended up, I had to accept that part of my journey was taking the medicine and that kind of stuff. So that's like, that was where it began. But then from that came the healthy routines, the awareness of myself. My best friend actually said to me, like, at one point he said, the people closest to you are like the canary in the mine. Do you know that metaphor?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the guys are mining down under the ground and they have a little bird in a cage, as cruel as it may sound, and the bird will start to get sick because it's more sensitive to the poisonous gases that are under the ground. So I guess the management through the Western system of medication was one thing in that journey, but the other side was actually me giving my own authority over to people close to me, like trusting my parents' instincts, trusting my girlfriend's instincts, trusting my best friend's instincts, that when they're telling me things aren't right, they're not saying it to try and undermine me, to try and take me off my path. It's because they're getting harmed by it and they can see that I'm going into a harmful space. So that was it
takes a huge degree of trust.
Oh yeah, it was really hard. It was really, really difficult, but that's where that journey began. So the side of managing and bringing balance back and going, oh, this is an illness, even though it's not the thing that culture says it is. It is a sickness that I'm gonna slowly work my way through and manage as well as getting the benefits and continuing to ground and expand the spiritual side of it,
So kind of feeling like the pendulum swung, like this is just all a spiritual awakening, and then oh no, we've got to have a look at this, and then you're finding your way back to balance.
Totally, and it like the first half of this decade for me, like, I mean, I'm nearly 40. I mean, the early 30s was the hardest bit, because that's when this pendulum really swung back in it's not spiritual.
Yeah.
You know, that was what the death of all of that, and that was kind of the hardest time in my life, really, because it was a huge like disillusionment to go through. You know, to just be like, no, you know, Western medicine's wrong, this is what it is, and then end up back in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really hard time. When I look back on a lot of it, it's like the fact that I'm even alive is just like, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
You know, because it was just so wild. Yeah. And I think like the most intense thing that I ever experienced was like a spiritual death.
Okay.
Yeah. So one night I was at a festival. I was 25, so about 15 years ago, and I did something I probably shouldn't have at the time, which was I ate a hash cookie.
Yep.
And there was a girl there who I met just that night, and we later found out she also had mental problems. And me and her had this really intense exchange where it's like we were trying to heal the earth in a way. Like that was what we were doing. But we were doing it in this way of like kind of not sacrificing ourselves, you know, like harming ourselves, but our own energy of being like, people have to be healed, this has to happen, and whatever's gonna happen, like anything, we're gonna go through anything we need to for this intent or this healing energy to go out to everyone. That was the kind of the silent agreement we made with each other. And yeah, and we had this really intense exchange where I was standing there looking at her and we were talking, and she said something really intense to me of like confronting me on the level of truth and being grounded. And I was like, and when she said that, something just clicked, and it was like this energy just kind of came down or up or whatever from the sky, and everything just started to open. Yeah, and I had the hash cookie, and I didn't know, but she was not meant to touch marijuana, and she'd smoked a joint.
Yep.
And so she ended up actually going psychotic, and that night, like she went deeper and deeper into this space. And as she was going there, I was getting drawn there also.
Yep.
And yeah, she ended up getting like dudes had to like knock her down and roll her up in like a mattress and stuff, so she couldn't move, and
Which is traumatic in itself.
Yeah, I felt really bad because I felt like I was responsible for helping her catalyze this thing.
Yeah.
But also felt so, it was like I was being sucked into the same space as her, you know, like I was going to completely lose it and end up in an ambulance myself and all that stuff. So yeah, it was really hard. She ended up getting taken away, but for me, it was like all of this reality disappeared, and I ended up in this different place. And it was like I was going down and through kind of like this underworld or something, this really dark place. And yeah, eventually I came out of that, and then it got even worse. It was like it went from being this place, something like hell, I guess. It was like there wasn't much energy left there anymore, and I came up and out, and then it was like the kind of that space people get into when they're really into conspiracy theories, the New World Order kind of technocratic elite tracking me and trying to get me, and this kind of thing. Like I ended up really strongly in that space for a long time. I remember looking up in the sky at one point, and it was like I could see this web, this like grid made out of squares, three-dimensional squares, and it was this deep, dark kind of like matrix made out of like almost like heavy metals or something.
Okay.
And as I became aware of it, that was when it started. It's like it was this shadowy, really not like really bad, controlling, you know, you will submit intention that became aware of me. And that's when it opened up and it all started happening. And that was the most intense one I've ever experienced, because what happened, it was like everything was open. It was like the most expanded you could ever be and the most contracted you could ever be at once. Just like every single possible part of my biology that could be open and awake was like just laid bare.
Yeah.
And and it was like I was dying, like everything. It was like I was losing everything I'd ever known to be real, all the connections I had. And it was like there was a wind, kind of a force moving through me that was just taking everything away. And it was unbearable. It's kind of like so much worse. Yeah, so much worse than the worst thing could imagine. It's just on the pressure on the sense of self. It was just so...
Just trying to obliterate.
Yeah, just destroy everything. And for 9 months after that, I ended up going back because this was at a festival, we were out in the bush and stuff, ended up going back into the city of Melbourne and living there. And for 9 months, I was in this space with that force kind of trying to get me, me fighting it. And at the same time, I was teleporting, like disappearing out of reality and coming back in. Like buildings that I knew well in Melbourne were changing form as I walked through them. I remember I told you this the other day. At one time I was walking along Melbourne in the afternoon at 4 o'clock and there was no one else there. I was walking down the street on my own.
What did you call that? Like a subdimension?
Yeah, like a subdimension. Yeah. It was like my consciousness was unchained from this reality, and just it had spiritualized itself, and was just, but because I was so, you know, kind of sick and ungrounded, it was just going through these spaces and opening them and closing them, and and it was like,
It sounded, you didn't say it explicitly, but it sounded like there was an element of time dilation in it as well. You said you didn't have to go far, but it felt like you were just...
Yeah, it was like I was on this street on my own, and I was staying in a share house that was only 1 kilometre away, but it was like I had to keep the willpower and the sense of home within myself as I moved towards that space to actually get back. You know, otherwise I might be lost forever. Yeah. And I had people with me, and they were saying sometimes they couldn't see me, or people around me couldn't see me. Sometimes I would be on a train one time, I remember, and these teenagers came on and they couldn't see me, and then suddenly they saw me. You know, things like this. Or we'd go somewhere to an address we knew well, and there was no one in the building. But then you talk to them later, it was 3:30. At 3:30, they were all in there. I think that, I feel rather that the model of reality we've been given, it's just like a corner, you know? And it doesn't make it, knowing that doesn't make it any easier to let the model we've been given go, because it's being reinforced.
Like,
yeah.
I'm gonna have to figure all this out now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it is only a small element of our potential, you know. So the last thing about that experience, and I think the point of what I was talking about before, is that I've never I can never go back from that, you know. And I knew that, not intellectually, but in the terms of feeling, yeah. And so what I've had to do is move forward from that, you know, and do everything I can to integrate it. Yeah.
Okay. How much of this would you say is insights in hindsight, and like how differently do you view these experiences now to as you're actually navigating them in the present?
Incredibly different.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like, yeah, it's just, it never stops. Those experiences never stop giving me new insights,
Yep.
new awareness, new growth.
Yep. So your future self is always learning from the past experiences.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a good way of saying it. Yeah. Yeah. And I feel it's a good time to be doing this, because I feel like I'm actually walking into the person whose body can hold all of those memories now. I'm just starting to be able to get there.
That's an awesome feeling.
Yeah, it's really good.
Being able to embody all of what you are.
Yeah,
for
for
anybody,
sure.
whether it's like not as like immense and overwhelming as your journey, it just feels good to be able to embody all of what you are.
Yeah.
You've just had a particularly challenging and immense quest, I guess.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. I feel that's kind of what we're all here to do, really, is to be able to just embody what we really are, you know, our potential, our passions, to be able to get perspectives, to be able to, you know, move with our own suffering, these kind of things. For me, like, and this is only for me, and what I want to preamble this with is that the concepts don't matter, but the practical application does. So for me, as I've grown as a human being and time's gone on, I've found a lot of solace in like old systems, like the Indian yoga system, what's under that, the medicine, Ayurveda, and like they're kind of ideas about reality and the way things are set up spiritually in our bodies, these kind of things. And Chinese medicine, the same theory of the elements and stuff. Once again, that happened to me because it was so useful. Like Chinese medicine just tapped straight in for me and started me moving in the right direction physically and becoming more healthy and stuff straight away. So I just paid attention. But what I learned from the old Indian ideas recently is the concept that relates to this subject perfectly, which is there's two separate poles, and one of them is Kundalini, which a lot of people have heard about, and that is the spiritualizing aspect. You know how I was talking before about that unbearable pressure and being laid bare to everything that I was experiencing? That's Kundalini waking up.
Okay.
And what they say about that is that if that reaches its conclusion, you die.
Okay.
You physically die. So you become spiritualized so much, you're gone. You drop your body. So that's one side. The other side is what they call, it's called the ahamkara. The word doesn't matter so much, but it's the sense of self, the ego, the part of you that grasps onto everything, says, that's me. My name's Chris James, I'm 39 years old, I live in Australia. You know, this is the house where I live. These things. So that's the opposite end of the spiritualizing aspect, is this sense of self. And a lot of what I've been saying in this video is that you need both.
Yeah.
And in a way, the more you get of the spiritual one, the more you need of the this is me one. Yeah?
Perfect.
Yeah. Because like we were saying before, like I spent all of my 20s going up into this one, and then I ended up, the pendulum swung back in my 30s and put me there And at the time, it was horrible suffering that I went through. But looking back, it's like, wow, that was me starting to learn how to ground myself through that sense of this is me, you know. And yeah, so that's about all of the routines I do to make my body stronger, the good food I eat, the knowledge I have to take care of myself. You know, even simple things like, say it's 8:30 at night and I want to record some music, you know. Instead of getting on the computer and going into that, I record a draft on my phone, put it away and keep winding down so I can sleep.
So you're not just like getting elevated and elevated.
Yeah, and then I can't.
You got to keep balance every day.
Exactly, that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. So it's these two things, you know, and it's like you could say this Kundalini one is like the spiritual side of mental illness, and this, you know, a Hamkara I am one is like the illness side. It's like you got to access that to address the illness side. You got to access that to address the spiritual side, you know. So they're these two things, two sides of the same coin, but you got to dance kind of between them.
Would you say that you don't have a choice?
100%.
You don't have a choice?
Well, I do. It's like, I guess a way to look at it is at this point in my life, because of the hard work I'm done, I'm stronger and so I can get away with more.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've got choices now, but I'm not turning back. Like I knew when I began really starting to take care of myself and move in the direction of integration that I was going to keep walking down this road.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I intend to for as long as I'm alive if I can, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you try not to deal with it, and well, what are your choices? You've got suppression, you know, which you can go get some psych drugs for that. That's easy. Or, you know, it's like, or you can try and get an addiction to push it down. Yep. Because
which is actually the most common.
The most common, yeah, because your awareness, what happens is once again, this is from the Indian teachings, your awareness creates it's called in that language, I think, like a crutch almost, like, you know how you walk on crutches? So you make the alcohol or the coffee or the weed or whatever it is, the crutch, that you then use, you know,
and then
to...
you kind of entropy because you're not using your muscles.
Yeah.
Better crutch.
Yeah. And so it becomes, that's exactly right. So that's what happens to a lot of people in this reality with Western medicine, is that they just have to keep getting a bigger and bigger crutch, and the problems get worse and worse. And that's kind of the story of not taking responsibility, you know? Yeah. And I'm somebody who's been very morbid, very negative, you know, for a long time, but I knew that about myself and I just chose to act anyway. Yeah. I just chose to, you know, I've heard this and this works, why not try it? If I'm already down so low, if things are already, like, I've had just years and years of unbearable days, day after day, but it's like, well, if I'm already there, why not try doing what they say is going to help? And then I do that. Six months down the track, you know, things are getting better. Oh wow, you know. So
what comes to mind is the parable of the two sons with the alcoholic father. You heard that?
No.
And one son goes on, never touches alcohol, becomes super successful. The other son goes on, becomes exactly like his father, total alcoholic, fails at everything. They ask the sons, well, why are you the way that you are? And they both answer the same: because I watched my father.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So you're gonna have this experience, this psychosis or whatever it gets labeled as, is gonna come on. Yeah. And either you're gonna go, I'm gonna take full responsibility for this, and that's your choice, or you're gonna say, I'm not fucking dealing with this, and that's your choice, and that's your two time tracks, right? Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And there's like, and it is hard. It's not only like, we never talked about this, but it's not just how hard it is. Like I know stories from like
reading Indigenous stuff, and some of my friends are into this. Like even for those people way back then who had all the cultural support, who people who went through these initiations were supported and known to be the people who were going to become the spiritual ones in the tribes and stuff. Even back then, it was nightmarish hell to get through and integrate.
With all the support.
Yeah,
so
with all the
it
support.
is insane.
Yeah, I'm not trying. And I want to make that clear. This is really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, really hard. But it's like this is your chance, you know. This is whatever's happened to you. That's what you got to work with.
Yeah.
And
that's so powerful.
Yeah.
That sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Like there isn't anything else. We can, you know, as humans, we like to kind of try and escape and think we can go off into the heavenly realm or whatever it is. That's not real. Like you're somebody. Your consciousness is put into a body, and you've got a duration and a lifespan. This is your only chance. So whatever it is that's happened, make it to your benefit, even if it takes you a long time to get there. Just start moving in the right direction, you know. Just even if it's just little bits day by day. It's like, yeah.
Thank you for that.
That's okay.
I'm sure I speak on behalf of a lot of people who are watching.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. It's what I needed to hear, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. It's really real pleasure to talk to you about this subject.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Is there any way that people can reach you as well that you would like to
share?
Yeah,
I'll put my email. I'll give you my email. Yeah, like I'm cool with talking to people in that way. Like I wouldn't give out my phone number, but yeah, like talking to people about their experiences and stuff. I love that. I've been like working with people on their health for like 20 years now.
Awesome.
Yeah, in different ways, depending on what I'm capable of at the time. So talking to people in that way is actually a pleasure for me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
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 Cool.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for talking to me.
This